talking about schools and school systems. Our educational system just needs a fundamental reboot. Gail, I see you on hold. We'll get to you in a couple minutes. Give me a couple minutes to set this up. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock. Chris is back in the chair on January 2nd, so about 2 weeks. All you got to do is I kind of went through the community and just looked at news stories, multiple publications. Let me just give you a couple of the headlines that should alarm you. When people say, hey, it's not that bad, Jeff, you judge it based off of some headlines and a quick story. And the reason it's important to you is this. If you're a homeowner, a portion of your real estate taxes go to your school system. How's this make you feel? Headline, McKinney dad sues school district for banning him from his kid's campus. Should you do that? Should you be banning parents from the school system because they speak up? Here's commentary. Time for Texas parents to take back public schools from the radical left. It gives details. Here's another one. Parents wake up to woke public schools. Let me give you a very specific story. It's not in Texas. It's from Ohio. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio, so I followed this very closely. And the reason this story is important is because I'm told it's happening here in Texas. I can't get anybody to give me details who will speak publicly about it. I've had people tell me this off the record, said they would not talk about it on the air, but it's real. In Columbus, Ohio, where I was born and raised, back about 10 years ago, there was a data scrubbing, data manipulation scandal in which and the story got broken by a newspaper up there, and they did a detail on this over a period of a year and a half. Here's what was happening. I'm talking inner city schools, not just inner city, but within the city of Columbus, big city schools. Principals were finding that they needed to graduate kids to get their bonuses. Principals in the school district reported to what's called a RED, regional executive director or something like that. There were 5 or 6 of those, and the Reds reported to the superintendent. Again, I'm told this is happening here in Texas, in North Texas. I talked to somebody off the air the other day, said, oh, that's happening here. And they said, I could prove it. I said, would you go public with it? And said, oh, no way. So what they were doing is teachers in classes of high schools were actually generating a grade, putting it in their system, their software, so it would report to the report card, and it would go through the school system and eventually make its way to the parent. And a lot of times they were grades of F. Students weren't showing up to class. Students weren't participating. Students weren't testing. I had one teacher at one time up in Ohio say to me, I forget the exact number, like 40% of my class that wouldn't even shown up on a regular basis, that they legitimately had an F. There's no way I could pass them. But after the school system published the numbers, my grades went to the principal. The principal reviewed everything, submitted it to the Red submitted to the district, and it got reported. After one of those grading periods, I saw that everybody in my class passed. The lowest grade was a D. She said to me, I went back and looked at the grades because she said I kept track of the records of what I submitted. I submitted Fs. Somehow, some of those students ended up getting Bs, Cs, and Ds. All of them graduated. She said, I went to the principal. The principal said, no, you must have done it wrong. She pulled out her paperwork, said, here's a copy of what I submitted because she printed it before she did it. She caught the principal in a lie. The principal said, well, we had to make some adjustments. She said she was going to go to the media. Principal said, you'll lose your job, you'll lose your pension, you'll never teach again if you do that. That was a threat. The story got broken, and as the details followed 10 years later, what it was, a data scrubbing scandal, so that the school system got the money from the Department of Education across the country. See, they didn't want to fail students because they wouldn't get their money. Now, let me ask you the question. If that goes on, if data scrubbing goes on, again, I'm told it's done here in Texas. Nobody will tell me publicly. I'd be happy to talk to you off the air. Hit me a note at Westside Jeff. What does that tell our students? What does it tell our kids? This happens especially in inner city schools, big city schools. What does it say to a student when they know they don't deserve to graduate? They know they've not participated in class. They know they've not tested. They know they deserve an F, but somehow they get a D or a C and they move on and they graduate. What kind of message does that send to them? Our schools are under attack. Our school systems are failing our students. We need a fundamental reboot. Our students are engaged in criminal activity. Our students, again, I told the story this last before the news. I know of a student or a teacher that told a woman teacher who had a student sucker puncher in the lunchroom. She ended up going down, she was passed out. She was not injured where she needed hospitalization. She went to the principal's. They took her to the principal's office later. She said she was going to call a police file report. The SRO said, no, I got this under control. She said, I don't care who you are and what you got under control. I was assaulted. The principal said, if you do, your job won't be in jeopardy and you're going to lose your pension. That is wrong. That reinforces bad behavior. That's really going on. I'd love to hear your perspective. Is it happening? Have you heard it, seen it in your district? My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff, and for Chris Crock, let's talk to Gail from Missouri. Gail, you've heard some of the things I've talked about. What's your perspective on what I'm talking about tonight?
Well, I'll start with this. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. And back in the 1994, 95, somewhere around there, when Bill Clinton first got in, I remember hearing it on the news. They didn't want Christian teachers in, and they pretty much the same kind of threats and stuff like that. They were watching them. And if they did any, talking about Jesus or moral values and teaching the kids right from wrong and everything, they were booted out. They were fired right away, and they replaced them with new age people. Don't forget that Bill Clinton claimed he was a socialist. Well, that's just a step away from communism. And communism hate Christians. They hate anything that's good. So it's all by design. They're trying to destroy our kids and their mental status. They're trying to destroy them. That's all there is to it.
Our education system's doing a pretty good job of doing it right now. And unfortunately, Gail, thank you for calling, by the way. Thank you for being part of the show. Unfortunately, a lot of parents don't know this is happening. That's why I want to expose it. I want to talk about it. I continually take calls from parents. You've heard them that said they pulled their kids out of public schools and they're homeschooling them. I looked it up here in Texas. I think it was 600,000 people, 600,000 kids, if I remember right, are being homeschooled in the state of Texas. That's about 10% of the population. Why is it you live in a home and you pay a portion of your real estate taxes to your school system, but you do not have the faith in your school system, so you homeschool your kids? Why is that? That tells me our system is broken. When parents have to homeschool their kids because that's the best education they can get, the value system they can be instilled in, that's the integrity and discipline parents can teach that schools aren't teaching, tells me there's a problem. Shouldn't be happening. Our school systems, many of them, our educational system needs a fundamental reboot. Many schools, especially in our larger metro areas, are broken, not doing their job, and parents need to be aware of it, understand it, and we need reform. Not just a little bit. We need to start over. That's my opinion. I want to hear yours. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. And for Chris Crock tonight and the next 2 weeks, he'll be back on January 2nd. I got to hit a quick break on the other side of this. We'll get back to your calls. We got a couple open phone lines. I want to hear you weigh in. 800-288-9227. We got to change our school systems, not just K-12, but also colleges. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. WBAP. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. In on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. Kids are coming out of high school today over-medicated, uneducated, and indoctrinated. Our youth are not on an equal educational level as our counterparts around the world. Part of the problem is high schools are trying to, especially in better neighborhoods, trying to be a pre-college educational system. That's wrong. I say change it. Our educational system needs a fundamental reboot. Many schools, especially in our largest metropolitan areas like Dallas and inside the city, are in a crisis mode. And when people say, no, they're not, we're taking call after call after call saying, yep, Jeff, you're right. I got I think 2 open phone lines at 800-288-9227. We'll get to some calls in 60 seconds. I've gotten several messages across social media. One of them, you can hit me up on Facebook at Westside Jeff. You can hit me up on X at Westside Jeff or Instagram. Got a note from Benjamin. Say, hey, Jeff, I'm driving around town tonight. Said, I've been retired for a while as a teacher, taught for 25 years. Taught 3rd grade for 1 year in high school, and also taught theater as a director of theater for 2 years. The kids are never a part of the equation. It's not about the education. It's always about the politics and the money. It's all about collecting the check. The bureaucracy and administration in our school system is ridiculous. Many of schools, public schools, are a babysitter at best. I can tell you story after story from people who are reiterating that. We just take some calls. Let them tell you. My name's Jeff, Westside Jeff, and for Chris Crock, my number 800-288-9227. Let's talk to John from Dallas. John, thanks for calling. You're on the Chris Crock Show with Westside Jeff.
I'll name the school district that my daughter graduated from, where that we call it social promotion. And I graduated from high school in 81, and they were doing it then. You know, you're just basically babysitting the kids till they get 18 years old, and you move them up each grade. Well, I mean, probably a third of my class couldn't read or write, and they gave them a diploma. And, they were doing it when my daughter was in Plano West. And, I think the premise is wrong in that I don't think the school system can be fixed. And I don't think it's normal, natural, or what God intended to herd all our kids into these classrooms. I think they're supposed to be homeschooled. And I've never met a disturbed or unlearned homeschool kid. They're all well-behaved, very intelligent, can go to college or do whatever they want. And you're still going to have kids who don't have parents to educate them, so you're going to have some kind of a collective, I guess, a public school, for lack of a better option for them. But until you if you brought discipline in, like I had the threat of severe corporal punishment at school and then corporal punishment when I got home if I didn't behave. And the Board of Education had to be applied from time to time to get my attention. And these kids have no threat, so the inmates run the asylum. And if you brought in discipline, then you could lower the money. The money you're spending is just being taken by the establishments running the schools. They're just, they're high. Well, let's hire another teacher. Let's hire another administrator. Let's hire another psychologist. But nobody is forcing these kids to learn to behave. You just got to do away with most of the system.
And do you know what, John? Our business leaders, our business owners in the community wonder why they can't hire. They know why they can't hire. It's part of the problem, right? Starts in the educational system.
We don't have the guts to tell the leftists to quit trying to baby everybody. Life is hard and harsh, and people are left behind. That's just a fact. And the last thing, this is the most disgusting thing about us as parents in our school. We herd our kids together, they bully each other, and we don't even put armed guards in there. And I could walk in tomorrow to a school with a machine gun and just start blasting away, and there'll be nobody to stop me until the cops get there. And then do we even know if they'll come into the school after me? Doesn't look like it to me. I can just plunk away. We're cowards, man. I'm disgusted with the shape we're in this country.
John, thank you for listening and thank you for calling. Again, parents are reiterating my point. I continually hear people say, it's not that bad, Jeff. I want to hear how bad it is. People think I'm just being an alarmist. You tell them. You tell the people who say, nah, it's not that bad, Jeff. Susan from Fort Worth, you're on the Chris Crock Show with Westside Jeff. What's your perspective, Susan?
Hey, Jeff. I became a homeschooler of 8 kids after the experience with the Keller School District with my oldest son, who tested a genius level IQ, and they demanded that he be on ADHD meds to make him a zombie so he would sit and do what they wanted unless it was testing week. Testing week, they wanted him on no meds so that he would be himself and score his outstanding scores.
So your school system in Keller told you they had to put your kid, they wanted you to put your kid on ADHD medicines.
They would expel him if he was not on that.
You got to be kidding me.
No, I am not. And when I talked
now
to the
they're
lawyer about
doctors.
suing them, the answer was, get in line.
Wow.
He had to be on meds or could not attend.
What's the outcome?
At 5th grade, we became homeschoolers for him and his 7 siblings. They are engineers, they are doctors, they are corporate executives. They're successful.
I've not heard that story before, that, you know what, if you don't put your kid on ADHD medicine, we'll expel him.
Oh, no, that's common. That's common. Just most people won't talk about it because we trust educators. We look at them as parents. We look at them and go, they're the experts.
Susan, I got to ask others listening, how would you feel about Susan's story? Your kid goes to school, Keller ISD is what you said?
Yes, sir.
Your kid's in Keller ISD, and the school says, put your kid on ADHD medicine or we will expel them. As a parent, how does that make you feel? You're paying real estate taxes to them.
It was awful. You trust them as the experts until you find out they're not. And they aren't.
Susan, thank you for calling and thank you for sharing that story. I appreciate it. Again, I want to hear those kinds of stories because people tell me every now and then, say, Jeff, you're making it up. You're an alarmist. This stuff doesn't really happen. You don't need me to tell all the stories. All you got to do is open up the phones and let parents tell the stories. As Susan just said from Fort Worth, kids in Keller ISD school system said, if you don't put your kid on ADHD medicine because he's disruptive. By the way, that was me when I was in school. I had to stand in the corner. I'll tell you about that. Got to hit Bob in the Hour News. On the other side of that, I'll tell you my story. It was 6th grade because that was me long before medicine. I was in a similar situation, only I didn't get expelled. My name's Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. I want to hear your story. 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. And I also want to hear, how's that story make you feel what Susan said? Put your kid on medicine or we're going to expel him. Is that right? How you feel about it? 800-288-9227, Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. John from Dallas called in and said his daughter, I think it was Plano schools, she graduated, and he said they call schools social promotion. Interesting. Susan from Fort Worth called, said her kids at Keller District, Keller ISD. The district came back and said your kid needs ADHD medicine or we'll expel him. She took all of her kids out of school system and is homeschooling and took a call. I forget who it was. Was it Gail, maybe? I don't know. Dennis from Trophy Club. It said, you know what, Jeff? I know a lot of homeschooled kids. I don't know one homeschooled kid that's grown up to be a failure. And I'm putting words in his mouth. They don't have mental health issues. They don't have major self-esteem issues. We all have confidence issues. But they're well-rounded, well-educated kids. And my contention is, Westside Jeff is my name in for Chris Crock. Chris is back January 2nd. My contention is, as a homeowner, you and I pay real estate taxes that goes to school systems. As a homeowner, we support school systems. We're not getting the value out of our school systems that we should be getting. Our school systems are broken. Our lives, our lifestyle, our culture has changed dramatically in the last 20 years. In fact, I contend the last 20 years, we've gone through so much change, more change than we have in the previous 100 years. And our curriculum has not kept up. Our educational systems have not kept up. Our administration of that has not kept up. Our evaluation and data points have not kept up. We need to reboot our education system. And when I hear a parent like Susan say, my school system, Keller ISD said, put your kid on ADHD medicine or we'll expel him, and they did. And she said, the hell with you. I'm going to homeschool my kids. Good for you. Good for you for making that decision. I had an employee once. It was a single mom that quit her job. One of the best employees I've ever had. We had a lengthy conversation. She was quitting. I said, why? She said, my kid needs me. I'm saving my kid's life. It was the same thing. She homeschooled her kid for that very reason. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff. You can interact with me across social media at Westside Jeff, or you can call me like Leighton did from Cisco on the phone, 800-288-9227. Leighton, thanks for listening. Want to hear your story? Want to hear your perspective? Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me, Westside. I'm a homeschool kid, oldest of 8. My parents went through the same thing. They had to pay school taxes, but never got to use the school resources. So I was, after the military, I was a single parent. I was trying to go to school, better myself, take care of my family, and my son was in kindergarten. Well, the teacher insisted he had either ADD or ADHD. I take him to I'd take time off from class. I take him to the doctor 6 times. I bring back documentation every time. He does not have this. He's just all boy. He does not have this. Not only do they expel him, they blacklist him.
What grade? What age was this child?
He was born in December, so he was he was a little bit behind his peers. He would have been 6 in kindergarten.
In kindergarten. And what school was that? Can you tell me? Or rather not say?
It was the Cisco Independent School District in Eastland County.
Cisco ISD. It said, take your kid has ADHD or ADD, take him to the doctor. You had to take him 6 times in the school system still.
Not just expel him, but blacklisted him to where he could not attend any of the public school, even at a higher grade. It's still not an option. He's blacklisted.
So he's not able to go to Cisco ISDs?
Nope. But that was the best thing because he's homeschooled. And he is a highly, a well-educated, high-functioning, just turned 15, and he's smarter than a lot of the current public school graduates who, like you were commenting, it's not a education, it's a social progression. And it's sickening.
Leighton, thank you for calling and sharing your story. It goes back to exactly what I'm saying. When we live in a school district and we pay real estate taxes that go into the school system, and the school systems are failing our kids, it's time for a major overhaul, a reboot. It's time in our country, folks. We got to reboot. We got to do something because we're going down the wrong path. My name's Jeff, Westside Jeff, and for Chris Crock, 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. Let's talk to, is it Philip in Temple? Am I getting that right? Philip, just regular Philip. Oh, Philip. Okay, misspelling, my bad. Philip, thank you for calling. You're on with Westside Jeff. What's your perspective? What's your opinion?
Thank you. It's a good topic, and I'm glad you're addressing it. It's just kind of a observation on this that I lived in Sweden for 20 years after I went to DSD, Dallas Independent School District, and played football up in North Texas, and I got an offer to do that over in Sweden. So during the time, I went to university over there, and my daughter went through the entire schooling system over there. And their high school is basically 3 years. It's called gymnasium, and the students are not only taught, encouraged, for analytical and critical thinking, but they're more prepared when they come out of the equivalent of high school for college. By the way, the curriculum and the classes are structured, and the way it's taught in their equivalent of high school, as well as they jump directly into, I guess you'd say, like your major, what you want to focus in, and start studying that already in high school. So they're prepared for life or further education when they come out. We actually have a higher rate of graduation from high school, but we fudge our numbers. So,
what do you mean?
That's the link. Go ahead.
What do you mean, fudge your numbers?
Oh, what? No. You know how well you already addressed it about teachers because of money and pressure from the administration to push kids through to graduate them.
Teachers failing students, putting in a failing grade, which is the proper grade, but a administrator, either a principal or administrator, overwrites that and passes them so that they can graduate and move forward through the school system, social progression as they call it, so the school system gets their money for it. That's what I was talking about. I continually, by the way, Philip, hear people say that happens, but nobody wants to talk about it. I find that interesting.
I noticed when I did get there, my peers, I felt that they were better educated than I was. And I'm not just talking about life I had experience. That's where I felt that they were more sheltered and not experienced in life. But schooling, they were good. And then when I returned here, I did finish my bachelor's and master's degrees. And I was 40, well, between 42 and 46 when I did that. And I was shocked of the level of my peers at university here and graduate school, because they simply weren't prepared for it. And the one guy was getting on me saying, "Why are you being such a stickler on grammar and all this stuff?" I'm thinking, well, because my name's on this group project too. I get input on it, but
because it's college, it's supposed to be. Yeah. This isn't everybody gets a trophy.
Yeah, exactly.
This is merit based.
Yeah. So don't just take my word for it. Feel free to research and yourself and everything. But that's just all I wanted to bring to the subject matter you're talking about.
Well, I've researched a lot and will continue to. Philip, thank you for listening. I appreciate you calling. Philip, you said something interesting. You said that kids in Sweden, you spent several years there, and you said kids, I wrote down what you said, students in Sweden are taught analytical and critical thinking. That doesn't happen here in our local school systems. You know why? Because analytical critical thinking doesn't adhere to collegiate level group think. They don't want you thinking on your own. It comes back to what I said. Kids coming out of the big school systems today in the United States and right here in North Texas are over-medicated, uneducated, and indoctrinated. And that indoctrinated part, they don't want critical thinking. They don't want analytical thinking. They want group think. Schools are broken. Need to fix them. We need to keep talking about it. I want to continue to hear stories from parents and educators. Share your stories, because I'm telling you, I run into people all the time say, Jeff, you're an alarmist. You're blowing it up. It's not that bad. I can sit here and tell you all the stories in the world. I'd rather hear from parents and teachers at 800-288-9227. 800-288-WPAP. Tell me your story. Tell me the ones you're aware of, because they're actually our parents that think, it's not a problem. Tell them. I want to hear from you. 800-288-WBAP. My name is Jeff. It's Westside Jeff in for Chris Crock on News Talk 820 and 93.3 FM WBAP. I've seen story after story, several of them in McKinney this school year. One of the headlines is that McKinney dad sues school district for banning him from his kid's campus. Samuel Hall, his attorney, Janelle Davis, says they hope to give courage to other parents to stand up to abuses of power by school districts. As the story goes, it says a McKinney dad who was banned from the school property after publicly criticizing local school district officials is suing the district for keeping him away from his kids' on-campus activities for an entire school year. Now, the district did this by issuing a criminal trespass citation that was recently ruled invalid. That's your school system. And that school system is McKinney. I'm not ripping on McKinney. I'm just telling you that's going on in every school system across the country and across North Texas. Got another story. McKinney ISD responds to alleged student assault with one of its own. Dig into that story. That was this school year from back in, I think it was September. And it was a kid that was bullied that the school system said never happened. And through discovery process, whoops, it happened. In fact, the teachers and educators in the school system had been emailing about it with a blind eye. It's amazing, story after story about what's going on in our school system. I took a call the other night from a listener that said, "Hey, Jeff, I'm a substitute. I can't tell you where I teach because it's threat of a job." Walk through a school. You'll see all kinds of rainbows, all kinds of things on posters and hanging up about if you're trans, it's okay. You can come out. You can. That's okay. It's okay. That's what our school systems are turning to. 800-288-9227, 800-288-WBAP. I want to hear your stories, what you've experienced, what you've seen. Even if you want to be an anonymous caller because you need to protect from your job or something like that. If you don't want to be, criticized and go through the whole cancel culture. Got an anonymous caller on the phone right now from an area here in the state of Texas. I don't want to identify it to identify that person, but thank you for calling. What's your story?
Hey, this is a first-time caller. It's never done this before, but, I got a story to tell. And you earlier said something about that you had a lot of problems when you were growing up. Well, I'm 70 years old. And when I was going to school, I had ADHD, okay? I was hyper. They didn't do anything for me. They couldn't help me because they wouldn't try. They didn't have any knowledge about what it was anyway. And so I got stuck to the side, just dunce hat over to the side. They just put me to the side. They wouldn't spend any time with me. So I ended up going through school really not knowing how to read and write from the elementary school because they wouldn't spend no time with me. I was just that difficult guy, And sure, I might have had it, but I went through school all the way to about 9th, 10th grade before I just couldn't do it anymore because I didn't have enough knowledge to read and write, and I was just flunking. So all I wanted to do was try, but I couldn't. So I quit school, went out and just did everything I could all my life to try to make ends meet. I ended up going and studying myself, and I learned more on myself and got a job. And today, I do engineer work. But the school couldn't help me. And when my son went to school, he was one of the products of what some of these other guys were talking about. They wouldn't let him go to school. He has ADHD. He's got to be on this medicine. And, I figured I had it. So I just said, oh, well, I guess he's got it too. And so we had to go through all that. And they pushed him through school. It's the money. It's all about the money. If you go to school, you get so much money for that child, and that's all they care about. It's tough.
You're spot on, my friend. You're spot on. Thank you for calling and sharing your story. Story after story, you hear it from parents, you hear from teachers, administrators. I mentioned, and you had mentioned a moment ago, my story. When I was in sixth grade, I remember in sixth grade, I was that fidgety, wiry kid. I just couldn't sit still. I'm still like that. I cannot sit still. And at the time, when I was in school, elementary school, they didn't know how to deal with it. So teacher just kept saying, sit still, sit still. I got sent to the principal's office. And the principal actually pulled out a paddle and paddled me. Just for being a nervous Nelly. I couldn't sit still. I was all boy. That was after they made me stand in the corner of the classroom and stand still through a teaching segment. I couldn't do that. That landed me in the principal's office and ended up getting paddled for it. That was then. This is now, and when I hear a parent call in and say, what was her name? It was Susan Fort Worth, I think it was, yeah. Said Keller District said her kid has ADHD, and if she doesn't get it diagnosed and get medication, they're going to expel the student, and they did. She said, the hell with you. I'm going to take my kids out of school, and I'm going to homeschool them. Our schools need a professional reboot. And I'm not talking government reboot. I'm talking you and I educational parent reboot. We got to get involved. My tip to you is walk through some school systems. Just go spend an hour in your kid's school. Walk around, look at what's hanging on the walls. Check out the place. Go consume it. Go read it. Go understand it.